Welcome to the Sarah Strat Show. I'm your host, Sarah Strat. This is a podcast about rebuilding, ambition, mindset, creativity, relationships, success, and figuring life out in real time. I used to podcast years ago, and honestly, I kept putting off starting again because I felt like everything needed to be perfectly figured out first. But lately, I've realized that waiting is its own trap. So this is me starting before I feel fully ready. And I have a feeling that a lot of you might relate to that too. So let's dive into today's episode. Ready or not? Welcome back to me and to you, because if you have listened to this podcast before, it has been a hot minute since we have spoken, since you've seen my face or heard my voice, unless you've been keeping up with me on social media, which even then it's sporadic at best. This podcast used to be called the Wealthy Optimist podcast, and I had started it back in 2019, pre-COVID days, and carried it through COVID for a little bit until I started really overthinking everything about it and trying to perfect it to the point of completely freezing and not being able to do it at all. So we are back. We are rebranded. We are the Sarah Strat Show. And I am your host and friend, Sarah Strat. And I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I'm so excited that you're tuning in. And that hasn't changed. If you've seen my YouTube videos when I was traveling around the world, I think I could have won a world record for how many times I said, I'm so excited. Because everything is always so exciting. And I think that might be my catchphrase, to be quite honest with you. Your girl did a lot of things. I did a lot of things. Some of them were amazing. Some of them were stressful. Some of them were really hard. And some of them felt impossible to get through. I traveled around the world by myself. You might have met me through that journey in my life. I started a YouTube channel at that time, talking about my travels, adventures. I went to so many different countries and just had a wealth of experience through that journey. And then I ended up deciding that I wanted to live in London in the UK, and I got my ancestry visa and I moved to the UK, and I lived in London, in central London, for years. It was 2018 when I took off from Vancouver, and it was 2024 when I found myself back in Vancouver, starting completely from scratch all over again. That was a difficult choice to make, and I'll dive more into it in a bit in the podcast because we have a lot to catch up on. I started the podcast, The Wealthy Optimist, in 2019 after writing my book, Positive Power, 12 Steps to Mastering Your Mindset. If you're listening to the audio version, I just held up a copy of my book. But the links are in the bio if you're interested in reading it. Now, I will say I wrote this book in 2016. I was going through a lot then too. My sister passed away that year. That was after I had already made a lot of progress on writing the book. That her passing away kind of pivoted me towards wanting to travel more and explore the world. And if you've ever lost somebody, you'll understand that kind of grief that comes with realizing for the first time that life isn't going to last forever. You know, despite how much I always say that I'm going to live forever, I want to live until I'm, 120, 130 years old. When my sister died, she was so young, and it opened my eyes to the fact that we could just be gone in a moment, and that grief and processing that very significant loss in my life made me want to go. It made me want to go and explore. It gave me a drive and motivation to do the brave thing, do the very scary thing that I didn't know I was even capable of doing. I had been, throughout my younger years, very codependent. Losing somebody like that can cause a pivotal moment in your life. And for me, it did. It changed me. It inherently changed who I was. And it opened my mind and my heart to this big wide world that we have available to us. I did a lot of things after Tamara passed away, a lot of adventures, a lot of positive things. I went on a mission with my church to Cambodia, went traveling to so many places around Europe, and had this huge, big, I think 5 or 6 month adventure. And that changed me even further. And it got me to realize that there were other parts of my life that were not satisfying me, that were perhaps even holding me back. When I moved to London, I was so proud of myself. I was so excited, so proud of myself. I couldn't believe I was doing these big things. Like, I could believe it, and I knew I was capable of great things, that I deserved great things in my life. And I kind of was just like propelling myself towards these new adventures. And it was all so exciting. I got to work with a amazing company when I got there. I was doing copywriting, and that led into me working for a different company, which led to me getting some great roles in social media management, which evolved into communications management, which got me working with marketing teams and in fields that I had been interested in, and really opened up my eyes to so many things that I didn't know that I was good at, but helped me learn how to be great at those things. So when I decided to start my podcast, it was 2019, and I think I think there was an episode, it might have been like the fifth or sixth episode, where I was like, 2020 is gonna be the year. Like, I was on such a propelled forwards motion of success. I was driven. I had just moved from Vancouver to London. I was living in this beautiful apartment in Canary Wharf that had a view of the River Thames. I was like, 2020 is going to be amazing. And then and then COVID came. And I actually got sick in January of 2020. And a bunch of people in my office were sick. And we didn't know that it was COVID until I ended up going. I didn't get better. And I think it was like a couple weeks into February, I went to the hospital. I was really unwell. And they did a blood test, and they were like, you have this COVID-19 virus in your body, which it's going around right now, and we're not quite sure what it is. It's some kind of flu. And I was like, okay. And then the world shut down. So that was terrifying. I got better, and then the world shut down. And life was just, it wasn't the best year of most of our lives. I feel like 2020 was not the best year. But I did continue the podcast into 2020. I ended up going through like a bit of a hard time. I was alone. I had just moved to London, and I was by myself. I didn't know anybody when I moved to London. Like, I did the very scary, brave thing. I moved to London. I was alone. It was wild. I had to learn how to make friends, meet people, like be in a new country, new currency. Like, it was obviously an English speaking country, which helped loads. But nonetheless, I was, 7,500 miles away from home, and oceans across. And it was a big adjustment. And so COVID happening kind of put a damper on my plans. But I still did get a lot of stuff done that year. But one of the things that I lost track of was the podcast. And I started to get really up in my head about perfectionism. Like, everything had to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, then what was the point? And that is a really unhealthy way to live, because we are never going to be perfect. I've since, if you fast forward to just last year, which was 2025, I've actually been diagnosed with ADHD. So I do think that there are some aspects, I'm still learning about ADHD and how that works for me and what that means for me. But I do think, like, looking back on my life, it makes a lot of sense. There are lots of, start stops and unfinished projects, or great ideas or rebrandings or things like this that have happened, and or executive moments where I stopped myself. And so I really wanted to make this episode about how much life can get away from you when you're figuring things out and trying to make yourself perfect, because life is going to be messy, and you just have to be messy sometimes. You have to just make the content, do the scary thing, write the scary email, tell someone you love them, be honest, open yourself up, try it, take the leap and trust, and if your idea or the person you're with or the job that you want catches you, then you're meant to have it. And if it doesn't catch you, then I feel like you're going to be pushed gently towards what is for you. And there are a lot of moments in my life where I was clinging on to things that weren't for me. And even during COVID times, I was in a rather unhealthy relationship that did teach me, unfortunately, a lot of hard lessons. A lot of hard lessons. I learned what manipulation was, what deception was, what emotional instability really looked like. And if you are coming to me from my TikTok, then you probably heard about about some of it, because I did go viral for a long time during COVID, talking about relationships, but not just about relationships, about the unhealthy aspects of relationships, because I was going through it at that time. I was going through it, and despite my better judgment and knowing better, I was holding on to something that I knew in my heart had no hope. And I don't know if that is just a matter of, comfort. They say you can't marry potential and all these types of things, and that's so true, but like I knew that the relationship was a dead end. Just like I knew that my relationship that was in Vancouver prior to me moving to London was a dead end. But sometimes I think we hold on to things longer than we need to. And I want this podcast to be about being able to come out the other side of that, process what we're going through, look inside of ourselves, and see what we need to see sometimes to wake ourselves up, find that power within ourselves, that energy, that light, that guidance that we need to be able to give ourselves the self-love and the knowledge to know that we can let go of things that aren't right for us, because it truly does open you up for things that are right for you, things that are good for you, things that are healthy for you, that are going to bring you true peace, true stability, things that you deserve, and positivity in your life in healthy ways. When I moved to London, I think I went through a little bit of an identity crisis. When my TikTok first started to blow up, it was because of a lot of things that I was going through. And some of those things were quite negative. And once I started to move away from the negativity, away from that person that was bringing some negativity into my life, I wanted to kind of distance myself from talking about those things, which made me have a bit of an identity crisis online, because so many people were following me because they were going through those things, and they were looking maybe to my page for support or guidance or comfort or reassurance that they weren't crazy, that these things, were happening, and for answers on how they could get through it. And I am in no way a medical professional. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. Any advice that I ever give is just because I have maybe been in a situation like that before, or through knowledge I've read about, or situations I've experienced myself. Whenever you're going through something, please look to professionals. It's not me. I'm not a professional in that aspect. When I wanted to distance myself from that kind of talk, so I tried to talk about other things on social media, and unfortunately, none of it went viral and it wasn't very successful. So I kind of had parts of my identity felt like they were being lost. I didn't know who I was on social media anymore. I didn't know how to present myself, and I froze. I stopped making the podcast. I didn't know what angles to go at anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. I started to lose who I was, and I focused on other things in that time frame but I wasn't able to have that identity online anymore. And I think that sometimes, and you can let me know in the comment section below if this resonates with you, that when we are unsure of the direction we want to go in, we can find ourselves stopping create, right? If you're a creative person, if you feel like you're unsure of yourself, or you're going through a really hard time, or there's grief, or there's complicated feelings, there's complex emotions, you might start holding yourself back, feeling like you're unable to create because you don't know who you're creating for, right? And I didn't know who I was creating for anymore. And I stopped realizing that the person I had been creating for the entire time was myself. And I lost that somewhere. But you can find yourself again. That is one of the things that I had to do, which was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life, was starting over at 36 years old. In 2024, I made the decision to end an unhealthy relationship and move from London back to Vancouver. And I was starting at zero. At zero. I was starting all over again. It felt like I was moving to a new country, even though it was my hometown. It threw me through a loop. It was hard. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I was starting over not only physically in a house with nothing. I had to sell everything I owned when I moved out of London, and I had established a whole house there, and all of my things and this kind of stuff, which was also becomes part of your identity. I had to get rid of everything and come back with, I think I had 3 suitcases when I came back to Vancouver. And not only was I starting over again with nothing, I was also starting over again emotionally, because I was grieving the loss of a relationship. I had to start over again financially, because I had ended up in a very poor financial situation and was moving back to Vancouver with no job and a lot of stress. It was very difficult. And I also had to start over again socially, because I had built up friendship groups and a community in London. And I was moving back to Vancouver where I didn't have any of that. I had my family, right? But I didn't have social connection. All of that felt really difficult for me. It felt embarrassing. It felt scary. I felt like a failure, because in so many ways it would look like you are a failure, right? Like I have nothing at 36 years old after having such a incredible wealth of experience in my life, and it looked really great on the outside. And on the inside, I just felt like I didn't know who I was at all anymore, because I had to start from zero, and it was so hard. But I'm living proof that you can go through hard things. You can go through heartbreaks. You can go through big moves. You can go through job losses, career losses, lifestyle changes, and you can come out the other side and be able to get through those things and find yourself again. And that's why I think that the message I have to share with you is important. And I want to be open and vulnerable with you all, be able to share those experiences with you, and help you see that if you can reflect on your past and your life and yourself, that you can get unstuck. You can start over. There's a lot of good things waiting on the other side of heartbreak or loss, or giant leaps of faith that maybe they didn't fall into place the way that you thought that they would. And you can come out the other side of those things. Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. When I moved back, I took 18 months to really focus on healing myself. I started some really cool projects that I was excited about. I tried to dive back into things that were passions of mine, like acting, writing. I started to, make some friends. I got myself out of my comfort zone. I reconnected with a couple of people from my past, but not a lot, because there were a lot of people in my past that were not good for me, and which is one of the reasons why I did have to start over socially in Vancouver as well too. I didn't want to necessarily be involved with people that didn't make me feel good about myself or bring good value into my life. So I reconnected with just 1 or 2 people that I had stayed friends with throughout my time living in London, the 6+ years that I lived there. I also started streaming. I thought, since the invention of streaming video games and Twitch, I always wanted to be a streamer. I never did it back then, because there's some parts of ourselves that can hold ourselves back from big dreams. And this is, I really just want to talk about this so much on this podcast that don't hold yourself back. Do the scary thing, like I could have done it when I was, in my early 20s and just done it. If you fail, so what? So what? Who cares? What are you so scared of? What are you so scared of? What is the worst that could happen? What is the worst thing that could happen? Nobody watches, nobody shows up, you go to an audition, you don't get the role, you write the book, nobody reads it. You did it. You did the thing. I could record this podcast right now and nobody could listen to it. Would it matter? No, because I did the scary thing. I did the thing that I wanted to do. And creating that, it's a kind of magic within yourself that will bubble up and give you more opportunities to create things that matter to you, that bring beauty into your life, value into your life, that will draw in people and places and things towards you that help you to expand your horizons and meet the people that are right for you, the people that are going to love you the right way, the connections that are going to carry you through life into the next chapters of your life, the job that is going to make you feel fulfilled, even though it's hard. It's hard work to do things, but it's going to lead you to those places. And that's something I hope that you take away from this podcast today, is you can keep holding yourself back. You can keep waiting for perfection, or you can listen to me, who started a podcast in 2019, did it for about a year, and then started thinking, oh, I've got to make this perfect and this perfect and this perfect. And then didn't do it again until 5 years went by. 6 years. We're at 6 years. So don't be like me. Don't do that. Be like the me that's telling you this now from the future, who is doing the thing that's scary. Do that thing. We can hold ourselves back indefinitely. Sure. And then what are you going to do? Be on your deathbed and be like, man, I really wish I put that idea out there into the world. Who knows what could have happened? And ironically, I'm a Libra. There's like the scales of balance. So ironically, I have some great advice because I've done so many scary things. Like, so many things are in this side of the scale that are like moving to a new country by myself, traveling the world alone, writing a book, putting that out there, going to auditions, doing plays when I didn't know how to do musical theater or have any theater performance experience at all. Like, so many things that I've done that were doing the very scary thing versus other things that I really wanted to do that I held myself back from. And it's about finding that balance of like, what things do I want to focus on, but also not holding back from other things that are perhaps equally, if not more important. I get really passionate about this stuff because I've seen in my own life and my friends' lives and followers of mine out there in the community's lives, how we can hold ourselves back or we can leap into the unknown and it can change our lives forever. It's like falling in love. You can fall in love with somebody and your life can change for the better, but it is so scary to tell them that you love them, to look at somebody and say, I choose you. Let's do life together. When you've come from a place of hurt or something that's broken, maybe you've been divorced, maybe you've had heartbreak, maybe you're a widow, maybe you've had abuse in your life. It can be so hard sometimes to trust that this new person, this love that you have found, is safe. And oftentimes we can't even trust ourselves to push ourselves to do something that is scary and hard, because maybe we don't love ourselves enough. And finding that self-love and that ability to push through is so important. It's so, so important because you deserve the good things. You deserve the great things. You deserve the great love story. You deserve the great career. You deserve the beautiful family. You deserve whatever it is that your heart desires. You deserve it all. You do. Say that to yourself right now. I deserve it all, because you do. You absolutely do. I have realized throughout my life that growth happens through discomfort. It happens through embarrassment. It happens through failing. It happens through trying things, experimenting with things, and deciding if this is right for me or not. There have been a lot of mistakes that I have made. A lot. We won't even go into them because there's a lot. But those mistakes are discomforts. They're things that I can reflect on and look back on and say, okay, I choose not to have this person in my life. I choose to leave that job because it was making me feel a certain way. I choose to leave this city because I am not feeling fulfilled here. It doesn't bring me joy and happiness. And sometimes our environment can greatly, not sometimes, our environment can greatly impact how we feel about ourselves. And when I chose to leave London, I was no longer happy there. I felt very depressed. I felt like everything was a struggle. I felt very isolated and alone. It was very difficult. I decided that I wanted a fresh start again. And the irony of me having a fresh start back in my hometown of Vancouver is not lost on me. For most people, a fresh start is going somewhere else, but for me, it was going home. That threw me through a loop. It was a big struggle, but discovering that courage creates confidence is essential to life. It's not the other way around. Confidence isn't going to make us courageous. It's having that courage inside of us that is going to give us the confidence to keep doing the hard thing, to keep making scary decisions, to take those big leaps of faith into the unknown, where we're not sure if it's going to work out, but we're in it. We've decided we're in it and we're going to go for it. And that is going to give us the confidence to keep taking those leaps of faith into the unknown and trusting that the universe, God, whatever it is you believe in, has your back and it's going to take care of you through it all. There's Taylor Swift dropped her album, and there's I think it's Opalite, the song, and she goes, they say when you know, when you don't, you don't. It's so true. When you know, right? And I'm in a place right now in my life where I feel like I know, but when you don't, you don't. Man, did that hit me hard, because there were so many times in my life where I was, in a certain career or a relationship, and I didn't know. I didn't know what I know now, that there's like safety and there's true compatibility and there's a willingness to learn how to communicate, and there's a comfort in understanding each other and learning how to understand each other. But when you don't know, you really don't know. And so many people hold on to an unhealthy environment or an unhealthy relationship because they just don't know. They don't know what it is to be loved well. They maybe don't know what healthy love actually is. And I hope that through some episodes in this podcast, as we dive into more moments of relationship discussions and career discussions and finding ourselves, that you grow to realize what healthy love looks like for yourself and to love others with, and to be loved how you deserve to be loved. So we're back. We're back. We're going to have a podcast episode every 2 weeks. And I am really excited to be on this journey with you as I start my life over again. And we are working on some really exciting projects. And I'm excited to have you come along on this journey, because why wouldn't I start now when life is messy for me? It's messy. I'm figuring things out still. I've been back in Vancouver for just under 2 years. In 2 months, it'll be 2 years since I moved back. So I've been back for 22 months. I'm still figuring things out. It's still messy. It's early days. We are just coming out the other side of some big changes, and waiting for the perfect opportunity isn't it. We've got to come out there and do the things that we want to do, whether we are ready or not. So if I can leave you with one thing today, it is that you deserve to have the life that you dream of, and you can do the scary thing. So stop holding yourself back by trying to be perfect or waiting for the perfect time or the perfect moment or the perfect person. You can do the scary thing. You can rebrand, you can rebuild, and you can come along on this journey with me as I do the same. I encourage you to share this podcast with a friend, to give it a like, give it a thumbs up, comment below something that you took from it, or if you just like to say hi. I am so excited to be back. And I'm really excited for this journey we're about to go on together. Oh, Maximus has come to say hi. And Maximus is really excited too. He just came to say hi. Hi, baby. We will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for watching the Sarah Strat Show. I'm your host and friend, Sarah Strat. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Sarah Strat Show. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, I'd really appreciate if you took a moment to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it too. It genuinely helps support the show and allows our community to grow. You can also find more information, updates, and resources at sarahstrat.com, and join me across all social platforms at Sarah Strat to continue the conversation and follow the journey. And if you're also rebuilding, reinventing yourself, healing, chasing a big dream, or just trying to figure life out one step at a time, I hope this podcast reminds you that you're not alone in that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next episode of The Sarah Strat Show. Until then, keep going, keep growing, and remember, you do not need to have everything figured out to begin. You can start whether you're ready or not.